Good morning. Uh, my name is Lee Cummings. I'm the author of the Negro Question book series. The bookstore is thenegroquestion.com, where you can purchase my books from Amazon. With that being said, this term that is being used in the media uh, right now, a very frequent term that's kind of misleading. Globalization, the globalists, and you have to look at it for what it really is. And I'll tell you this, I was thinking about this lesson before I even put it together, and I thought to myself that this is going to be a very delicate lesson because of the nature of the lesson. When you there are some truths that we illuminate, the historians and the scholars and the researchers, and it's borderline racism because you have to go inside these little rooms, these rooms that we call that you know that phrase that they use, the elephant in the room. You have to go inside these little rooms and not be tainted by the negativity that's in the room. And so this is a touchy subject. I'm gonna do the best I can uh, to to just simply present the information and not appear to be slanted. And so, this subject of globalization or the globalists, I am of the opinion that when we get through examining the information, you'll see that globalization is nothing but it's a new name for colonialism and a new name for slavery. And the only thing that's different about globalization is that this encompasses the entire globe, the entire planet. Now, when you look at this, the first thing that you have to take a look at is uh, American number one, numero uno, Brother Benjamin Franklin. Now, Benjamin Franklin wrote an essay in 1751 that is great concern, and it's uh, it's a very damaging essay to what has been recorded by the modern historians. Now, Benjamin Franklin is going to give an eyewitness description of the world in 1751. It's just like uh, he is what they call boots on the ground. Now, I want you to take a look at what Benjamin Franklin wrote. This essay is called Benjamin Franklin's Observations of Mankind. And I think on the previous page, I want to go back to that page and show you at the bottom here. You can find this essay at the Library of Congress. Here's your archive information right here because it's such a volatile essay that I had to give the reference because the Bible talks about the prophet said, uh, to whom, he said, who shall believe our report, and to whom shall the arm of the Lord be revealed? In essence, if you didn't have this information, you wouldn't even believe it. Watch this. So you go back and you read the essay. I'm not going to read all of this because I don't want to bore you, but I want to get down to the nitty gritty. It says, and follow my arrow. It says, why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who will surely be so numerous as to Germanize us? So now he's talking about Germany instead of us anglifying them. But the Anglican Church, there were two churches of prominence in England at that time. It was the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church. And you never hear anything about the Anglican Church because the Catholics dominate history. But it says they will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion. So he's saying, hey, these Germans didn't look like the Anglo-Saxons. Now we're gonna read probably some of the most damaging, probably one of the most damaging comments made by a philosopher in any generation concerning race. Watch this, paragraph 24 or article 24, which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All Africa is black or tawny. Now, he says all of Africa. Well, the land of Israel is located in Northeast Africa. And he says that all Africa is black or tawny. That means at this particular junction in history in 1751, the Israelites or the Jews were still a black people. I didn't write this. This is at the Library of Congress. Benjamin Franklin, the eyewitness, wrote this. Now check this out. He said all Africa is black or tawny, and we're going to deal with this word tawny. Asia, chiefly tawny. That means, Brother Paul the Apostle came from a place called Cilicia. Cilicia is in ancient Anatolia, and the modern name is Turkey. 3% of Turkey is in Europe, and 97% of Turkey is in Asia. So all of Asia, China, Japan, all those nations were, at one point, they were tawny or swarthy nations, meaning they were black nations, according to Big Ben, Benjamin Franklin. And again, do you remember my introduction? I said, we're going to go inside a couple of these rooms, and there's going to be a big old elephant in the room. This is one of them elephants. Now watch this. He said, America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. Wait a minute. If America was black or swarthy, that means that the original Indian or the original indigenous people were what? They were black people. Now, who wrote this? Benjamin Franklin. And I could show you William Penn's writings, and he would authenticate or validate what Benjamin Franklin has written in this essay. But watch this. He says, and conjunction. And in Europe, the Spaniards, the Italians, the French, the Russians, the Swedes are generally what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. Right? So he said, I want you to hear this. Benjamin Franklin said the Spaniards were black, the Italians were black, the French, the Russians, and the Swedes. And then he goes on to say the Germans also. Now check this out. Remember up here where he says, they're going to Germanize us. He said, they will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion. And then he comes down here and tells you that these Germans are swarthy. So let's be like a fruit picker, picking fruit, instead of taking this entire basket, because we could take this whole basket and run with it. Let's pick the fruit. The fruit in this essay is the Spaniards, the French, and the Swedes, which are the Dutch. So the slave trade, I want you to hear this. The original globalists who had their sights on ruling the entire world were Black French, Black France, the Black Spanish, and Portugal. They were one people that had been divided, and the Black Dutch. And you said, well, what about Britain? Well, if you're a real historian and you are a real scholar, you would know that the Brits didn't buy the slave states until 1803. So the Brits were not involved in the slave trade until 1803. And the only reason they get mentioned with the slave trade in 1803 is because the Louisiana Purchase had the slave states on the landmass. And then 62 years later, they ended slavery. Why? Because of the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta stated that England did not recognize the institution of slavery. Go back and read your history books. This is going to be a good lesson for all of you historians and you college professors, because you guys teach decent history, but it's so spread out, you never bring it together to make sense out of it. Now watch this. So in Europe, Spain, in France. We see that we got Spain, the Italians, French, Russians, Swedes, or the Dutch. They're all swarthy, which is black. And then he comes down, he makes another interesting point. He says, why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America? So he's letting you know that all the nations aforementioned above, they were black nations. Now, so what happened? Well, we're going to show you. And this is of great interest. These black nations were black Catholic nations who had the same globalist mentality. Now, what does the word swarthy mean in 1751? So in order to get an idea of what the word swarthy meant, I had to go back and find a dictionary from 1788 that would give a definition of swarthy. Swart, Gothic, swarth. Oh, Dutch, black. Oh, a black Dutchman. Darkly brown, tawny. Oh. To swart, to blacken. Swarthily, blackly, duskly, tawny. So the word tawny and swarthy means the same thing. It means black. And what's interesting about it is the dictionary, the Samuel Johnson English Dictionary of 1788 runs parallel with Benjamin Franklin's essay that all these European nations were swarthy in the late 1700s. But according to your history books and according to the census that was taken in Europe, in 1800, there allegedly was 0 black presence. When Benjamin Franklin is letting you know, even before the Civil War or the Civil War, even before the Emancipation Proclamation, Europe was being ran by black nations, the black globalists. Now watch what happened. Now, the original slave masters in the southern states were black, not according to me, but according to Benjamin Franklin. We had Spain, Portugal, French, and the Dutch. But the point that I want to make is to take the bitterness off this lesson or this presentation is that slavery was not about color. It was about religion. Do you understand? And I'm going to prove that to you because the real slave trade, the historical slave trade, was black French, black Spanish, black Portuguese, and black Dutch Catholics invading West Africa and enslaving the black Hebrews. And there's a reason why I call them the black Hebrews, because this part of the world, this is where the black Hebrews were. You had black Jews in West Africa, and you had the Ashkenazi Jews down in Hungary, Russia. Some was in Ukraine, Poland, and if I missed you, I apologize. But I'm going to show you, based on this papal bull from 1452 that was issued or dictated by Pope Nicholas V, 1452. And this is what this papal bull states. Justly designed that whatsoever concerns the integrity and spread of the faith, for which Christ our God shed his blood, shall flourish in the virtuous souls of the faithful. Now watch this. Now he's granting this papal bull to these black Catholic nations in Europe at that time. We grant to you by these present documents with our apostolic authority, full and free permission to invade, which they did, search out, capture, subjugate the Saracens and pagans and any other unbelievers and enemies of Christ, wherever they may be, as well as their kingdoms, duchies, counties, principalities, and other property, and to reduce their persons into perpetual slavery, that was the objective. The objective was these black nations, these black Catholic nations, France, the Dutch, the Spanish and the Portuguese, had a license, this paper bull from Pope Nicholas in 1452, to go into Africa, in any nation in West Africa that was not Catholic. The term they use is Christian. That's a loose term. You got different types of Christians. But this particular instance, if they came down there and you was not a Catholic, these Black European superpowers at that time had the religious right to capture you, sell you into the slave trade, and take your lands. But the key word is perpetually. So, the idea was the so-called Negro in America was never supposed to be a free man, ever. He was supposed to remain in slavery forever. But the Most High, Allion, had different plans. Now you say, can you validate this? Can you prove what you just stated? Well, there's this book that was written. It's called. It originated at Louisiana State University, and it's titled "Creole New Orleans: Race and Americanization." And you can find this book down there right now in their publication department. But it says, on page 67 of this publication are the notes of a slaver recording the inventory of human beings on a cargo ship. Let's see what he writes. He writes that 16 slave trading ships arrived from the Senegal region. 6 ships came from Judah. Oh, there was a place in West Africa called Judah. Now, when you read this, if you're a Bible scholar, you're a seminary student, or you're a minister, you thinking the land of Canaan. But we're going to show you. 6 ships came from Judah and landed at the mouth of the Mississippi. And in 1731, one ship from Judah landed 464 slaves at the mouth of the Mississippi. And so you have a lot of blacks who that have their origination, their family. So where are you from? Well, my grandparents, my parents and my grandparents and Big Daddy and Big Mama and them, they from Mississippi. Well, little did you know that this is where they dropped the tribe of Judah off. Judah, Benjamin, and Levi was dropped in the southern states, Mississippi and Louisiana and these places. And we're going to show you that there are maps that validate this claim. Now remember, the original subject was what? That the Black French, the Black Spanish, the Black Portuguese, and the Black Dutch went into West Africa, took out these Black folks because they were not what? They were not Catholic Christians. These people were what? They were Hebrews. There's further proof that validates my claims. This is a map from 1747 that was created by the royal cartographer, Emmanuel Bowen. Now, he created this map for King Louis XIV, and I think King George I or II, where he goes in and they map out West Africa to see who's there. Because remember, the Black kings of Europe are running Europe now. So he goes down and look what he finds. Down here where the whites, where the whites eventually, I guess I'm gonna have to rephrase myself. The Black globalists renamed this, called this the Slave Coast, but before they arrived, it was called the Kingdom of Judah. Now this map is dated to 1747. 1747. This is in a line with Benjamin Franklin's writings and the dictionary definition of swarthy, which puts these Black globalists, these Black nations at the time, right in West Africa. This is what they call in the hood. This is Black on Black crime, man. Now we have been taught in the history books in the United States that these white European nations went in, grabbed these Black folks, enslaved them, and they had been enslaved. We had been slaves in the southern states for 400 years. Well, guess what? It is all a hoax. They lied. So these black nations, these black Catholic nations in Europe, they came in, took the black slaves, they dropped them off in the Middle Passage, and then they dropped some off in North America. And the idea was what? They had the same idea that this modern globalists had. They were going to take over and rule the whole world. The black globalists, but they were black Catholic globalists. Now watch this. We'll go a little further in this. Here is a artifact. I'd like to share this with you. These guys, I think it's 1884. 1884, the London Times. In 1884, the London Times sent a war correspondent down to West Africa. His name was Sir Morton Stanley. Well, Sir Morton Stanley gets down to West Africa, and while he's they're involved in a war with the Ashanti tribe, here is an Ashanti high priest with Sir Morton Stanley. They're crossing the Pride River, I guess, in Nigeria. This guy has he's a high priest. He has 12 stones on his chest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12. 12 stones on his chest that represent, each stone represents one of the tribes of Israel. And on his hat, he has holy to Yahweh. And you would say, Kadash, La Yahweh, or Kadash La Yahweh. And this is coming straight out of your Bible in Chronicles and in Leviticus and in Exodus, that Aaron, the high priest of Israel, had 12 stones on his chest to represent the 12 tribes. This is not coincidental. So not only did the Europeans, the black Europeans, know of the existence of the tribes of Israel in the Gold Coast area, they also were aware that the tribe Levi was there as well. Now, getting back to the original lesson, I'm gonna stop this and I'm gonna go back because we're almost through. This was a real brief piece that I had put together, but I will tell you this. So something took place. Somewhere along the line, the black European nations were overthrown. Okay? You had the overthrow of the black European nations, the black Catholic European nations. And Europe was going through a racial change because prior to 1800, and this might give some comfort to somebody out there was no such thing as racism. So what happened? 1800 rolls around. The whites overthrowing the blacks in Europe. You say, well, how do you know that? How can you be sure of that? Well, we're going to go and we're going to take a look at the writings of Professor Boyd Dawkins. He's doing an essay in 1879. He's giving a speech at Collyhurst College. And now I want you to look at the timeline. We done went forward from 1751 to 1879. Now remember, 1751, Benjamin Franklin said all these nations were black nations. And I'm gonna let Professor Boyd Dawkins fill you in on this particular subject because it is that deep of a subject that I cannot begin to speak for the professor. I'm gonna let him speak for himself and let his words resonate with you. This piece right here, it comes from, I want to leave this on the screen so you can It's called Our Earliest Ancestors in Britain. And there was a lecture by Professor Boyd Dawkins. And I want you to see the date. Manchester, Collyhurst, Manchester, January 1879. This is also a Library of Congress piece, and you can find this online. But I want you to hear what he writes. And I'm not reading all this. You have to read some of this on your own. I always say you have to invest in your own salvation and in your own understand your own research. I'll pick it up. Watch my little hand. Supposing we go a few years further back and examine the history of Germany. The cry under which the Germans have advanced to victory is the cry of a united Germany, that Germany, which should unite under one rule all the Teutonic people. Teutonic is another, I think they say a Latin version of the word Germany or German. Now watch this. This is the reason why I stopped talking, and I wanted the professor to speak from the grave to us. He's going to give an exact timeline on when the Black nations begin to fall in Europe. This is one of the greatest historical pieces to never have been heard. Watch this paragraph. He says, on the other hand, if we consider what has happened in France, France, Benjamin Franklin, 100 years later, said France was Black. Spain, he said Spain was Black. Italy, Benjamin Franklin said all these nations were Black in 1751. Now watch this. On the other hand, if we consider what has happened in France, Spain, and Italy, we find that in those countries also the claims of race have not been ignored. So now this is when racism, the ugliness of skin color begins to creep in. If you red, black, brown, white, orange, and blue, now they're using race to do what? To separate the masses. There, a dream has been shadowed forth that there might be one great Celtic empire. So this is what the white globalists are interested in. This is what they're all about. These are the writings of their fathers. See, the reason they wrote it down is because since there was no concept of racism in the world, it was safe to tell the truth in those days. Watch this. There, a dream has been shadowed forth that there might be one great Celtic empire to include France, Spain, and Italy. Now they call themselves Celts now, so as to embrace under one great dominion all those who are the white race. He's saying Celtic, but he's talking about because in 1879 he's letting you know that there's a new world order. I want to go back up here where he says right here, when we look at the history of Europe during the last 2 or 3 years, so I'm in 1879, if I subtract out 3 years, so I go 1870, I know it's going to be 1876, but I want to look at it anyway. So I subtract out 3 years, I got 1876. That was when the Anglo-Saxons, the whites, the white nations begin to overthrow the Black nations in Europe. And he tells them, when we look at the history of Europe during the last 2 or 3 years, we see that the claims of race have been those which have been advanced by Russia. And she has assumed that she has a perfect right to subject one rule all those who belong to that race, which is the principal race in Russia. Well, Benjamin Franklin told you that the Russians were swarthy. In the dictionary, defines swarthy as what? As Black. So Russia began to fall in 1876. So the nations are capitulating, they're beginning to fall to the white dominion, or this concept of a white empire. Now watch this. Or supposing we turn to our own country at the present time, we English are getting to recognize more and more that blood is stronger than water. Instead of speaking of the Americans as simply Americans and the Australians as Australians, we speak of the English in America, the English in Australia, the English all over the world who are not less English because they happen to live in America or an antipod. So now, The new globalist is a white globalist. The original globalist, I can't even say that because the term itself, if I use the term correctly, I would have to go back all the way back to Sargon the Great on the other side of the flood, ancient Sumer. I would have to go back to Nimrod. I'd have to come down historically through the names that we know of. Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon ruled the world. Assyria under Sennacherib, Cyrus, the Medes and the Persians, Cyrus the Great, Alexander. These were the original globalists. Once the black globalists faded away in the history, the whites picked up the mantle. This is the history that they know of, but they won't teach in the so-called free school system. You get what you pay for. Try that one. So now the black nations have fallen. The white nations have picked up the standard and they're running with it. But they failed to do one thing, to mention that the blacks had done it before under the veil of Catholicism. Black France, Black Spain, Black Portugal, and the Black Dutch. Now check this out. So when the smoke cleared and there was nothing else that they could gain from this, what did they do? So now, in order to maintain, remember, it was a white empire. And this is what Professor Boyd Dawkins is talking about. He said, hey, this is the mission. So what did they do next? They had the Berlin Conference in 1884. That's what, 1876, 1884, 76 is 8 years later. Wow. 8 years later, after Professor Boyd Dawkins does his presentation, the speech at Collyhurst College. 8 years later, they have the Berlin Conference. At the Berlin Conference, they decide to carve up Africa and they go in and they colonize. You can't say I'm lying because you know that this is historically true. Now check this out. So after they colonize Africa, they go in, the atrocities, and they pull out all the minerals and the wealth. 1920, what do? 1920, they say, hey, you know what? We need to put some firepower together because if we're gonna rule the world, we're gonna have to come together and be a collective group, and we have to create articles where we protect ourselves against the people that we have been stealing from. So 36 years later, they formed the League of Nations. They allow one African nation to attend, and that's Ethiopia. There's 53 to 54 African nations on the continent at this time. I mean now, but only one nation was allowed to join the League of Nations. Now I want you to see how diabolical this is. In 1879, Professor Boyd Dawkins he shows you when the black nations begin to capitulate and fall in Europe. 1884, the Berlin Conference. 8 years later, you had the Berlin Conference. Let's go down there and take what these people got. And they did that. And remember, a lot of these people were not Catholics. 36 years later, they formed the League of Nations. Really what? A military cabal of what? Anglo-Saxon nations. What is that? 25 years later, they formed the United Nations. And at this particular, they all what? All white nations. This time, Egypt was invited, but Egypt was considered an Arab nation. Ethiopia, they dragging Ethiopia along. Liberia was invited, And South Africa didn't count because don't count. So South Africa and Egypt don't count. Africa was under white Dutch rule all the way up to the 90s. Y'all know that. They were considered the last apartheid nation. But we got a nation down in the Middle East right now that resembles an apartheid nation. Now check this out. 1945, 25 years later, the United Nations is formed. And again, you have the same list of alleged African nations that were allowed to participate, but all the other Black nations and peoples of colors, all other Black nations actually in Africa were locked out. So as I conclude this brief presentation on globalism, globalism is nothing. If you look at it and you're being honest with yourself, if you're white, Black, orange, or blue, and you just being, you analyzing the information that was presented to you, what can you take from this but that this is nothing but white power? This is just what Professor Boyd Dawkins said, a Celtic empire. And the way they are maintaining control over this planet is what? Making sure that the Black nations don't create nuclear weapons and keeping the power in the hands of the European Union and NATO. These entities sprang forward from one concept, one idea. And it wasn't even started by the white globalists. It was started by the Black French, the Black Dutch, the Black Spanish, the Black Portuguese, and they were the slave masters in the South. And history, in order for them to maintain this facade of white power, they controlled the classrooms, they controlled the narratives, and they funneled our children to these schools, and then they hit us with this brainwash, and now we're walking around downtrodden mentally, thinking that we were an inferior people. And I've come to the end of my presentation. I hope that you got something out of this. Now, don't forget, I don't get grant money. I don't get funding from these government agencies. This is how my research is used to finance the books, dictionaries, and the Bibles that we put out. In fact, we just put out, let you see this. This book right here is called Genesis Volume 1. Genesis Volume 1 is, I wrote this in, it's a 6-column book that was written in English, in ancient Aramaic Hebrew. And this book will teach you how to read, write, translate, and speak Hebrew from your house or from the coffee shop. And then we got a book that deals with the last days. It's called The Seventh Seal. In fact, go to the bookstore, you'll find something that you like. You can go to the Negro Question bookstore.com. You can go on Amazon, or you can go to the Negro Question bookstore.ecwid.com. And like I always say, because I'm going to make it to the finish line, I'm going to see you at the finish line. Peace out.